The Sybaris is an old-school Warframe weapon, and that I said, maybe one of the most beautifully designed weapons in the game. But you know what? While it may be pretty, it's never been overly powerful. Enter the Incarnon Genesis adapter. Hey guys, welcome back. As always, my name is Leyzar, and today we're going to be diving deeper into the Incarnon Sybaris. On the table we got both the Dex and the Prime, so you can make an informed decision on which to upgrade. That said though, please bear in mind that my builds and guides usually take a new player friendly tone, simply because I want anybody watching to understand how these weapons function and how they should be built. So in case you're a vet and you already know most of this stuff, please bear with me. Let's begin by checking out how the weapon handles without any mods equipped, and for that, just a couple of our regular free shots. The Sybaris is a burst rifle, and per shot it's going to be consuming 2 ammunition from your magazine, and it's going to be firing those shots in rapid succession. This is a hit scan attack. The reload is a bit on the lengthy side considering the magazine size of only 20. After you install the Incarnon Genesis adapter, you will have a charge gauge right underneath your crosshairs, the usual, that needs to be charged via headshots. Unfortunately, body shots will not work. With any level of charge, you get to go to Incarnon form and the weapon changes appearance and functionality. Though on this one, the functionality mostly remains the same. It's still a burst rifle, only it goes from a 2 burst to a 4 burst, and all of those bullets have a guaranteed blast proc on the target, which is why you see those little effects. Basically, it detonates after about a second and a half. And that's mostly it when it comes to functionality. Now we're gonna have a closer look at talents, and we're also gonna be comparing to the Dex variant so you can make an informed decision on which to Incarnon. In my case, I did both, so I can bring you this comparison. Evolution 2 is the first relevant one. Blazing Battle is the way to go, increases base damage by 15 just like the other option, but on firing 5% multi-shot stacks up 10 times and the buff will be staying with you. Yes, I'm talking about 50% multi-shot. The alternative is an additional 15% base damage. Evolution 2 talents are identical between Dex and Prime. Evolution 3, however, is not. You got a choice between Extended Volley, increases magazine capacity by 12. In the case of the Dex variant, you get slightly less, unfortunately, only 10, but the rest of the talents are the same. Ready Retaliation, on reload from empty 60% reload speed, and Marksman Hand, minus 60% weapon recoil. You can couple this one with minus recoil in your XL slot to make the weapon dead still, which is what I usually go for. Keep in mind that this tree is basically the utility tree, so it's down to you and what you prefer. And the final one, which arguably should be the most impactful one, here we have a very good example of how much attention was paid to the weapon. We're gonna go Prime and then we're gonna go Dex. Starting off with Elemental Dominance, increases base status chance by 5%, effect doubles in Incarnon form, whoopee, a whole 10%. From my testing, it appears that you're not getting double in Incarnon form, it appears to be a bug. Now let me bear you a striking comparison to another talent called Survivor's Edge. This one increases base status chance by 10, period, that's it. So straight from the get-go, it's already better than Elemental Dominance because this one only offers you 5% in its normal form, while Survivor's Edge gets you 10% in Incarnon and 10% normal form, as so. Oh, and on top of that, another 5% base critical chance as well, so why even bother? Reverse Rapture is a talent we've seen before on the Incarnon Bursten. That one stacks up 5 times, and on full burst hit, 20% damage resets on reload. So you're getting 100% damage. Before you think multiplicative, it's not, sadly. This one is additive. And in the case of the Sybaris, you're only getting 4 stacks instead of 5 stacks for some reason. Maybe the thought that the weapon would be too powerful. So the Bursten actually has the superior version of this talent, but it doesn't actually use it. We're going to be going obviously for Survivor's Edge, or at least in the case of the Prime. Now I'm going to draw a quick comparison to the Dex variant, because in this case it might actually be worth going for Elemental Balance. Not only does the Dex has higher critical chance as base stats, but it also has increased base status chance by 10%, and the effect should again double in Incarnon form. When you're talking about Incarnon form, 20% base status chance extra, that is a pretty big deal. Also, Survivor's Edge doesn't offer as much as in the case of the Prime that gets 5 and 10. This one only gets 5 and 8. So Elemental Dominance might be the way to go if you prefer the Dex variant. And since we're talking about differences in talents, let's do a comparison between the Incarnon Dex Sybaris and the Incarnon Sybaris Prime. First primary fire mode and then the Incarnon fire mode. In primary fire mode, you got the same fire rate, you got a bigger magazine on the prime but a faster reload on the Dex. Accuracy very high versus high, doesn't really matter all that much. Critical chance 30 versus 35%. As per the usual, the Dex Sybaris has an advantage when it comes to crit, but the multiplier remains the same. Damage difference, however, in normal mode, you will see that the prime and its primary advantage is the fact that it has more burst damage, roughly 20%. However, in Incarnon form, that big gap shrinks to about 10%, 125 base damage for the Incarnon Sybaris Prime and 111 damage for the Incarnon Dex Sybaris. The differences between the two are not all that significant. If you want a bit more crit, you go Dex. If you want a bit more base damage, you go Prime. My recommendation, simply the one that's closest to you, as the difference in performance between the two, as you will see, are basically non-existent. It doesn't really matter all that much. Now, let's say you came across the Sybaris Prime as a new player. It's not really a new player's weapon. You should be looking towards more something area of effect that can deal with enemies easily up until level 100 and something. Link in the cards right now for a full and detailed guide on the Ignis Wraith. Today we're just going to be focusing on the Incarnon bit, the endgame bit. And an endgame build would be looking something like this. If you don't have a Riven for this one, even though I do recommend you leverage the power of a Riven because the dispo is 4 out of 5, you can go for a faction modifier instead, something like Prime Bane of the Orokin. We're gonna be using the exact same build on both the Prime and the Dex, and we're gonna shoot level 205 with the Steel Path modifiers enabled, plus the priming of a primer, Hellstrom. This one is going to be priming our targets with Corrosive and Cold. Cold for primary Frostbite for that critical damage and multi-shot. And the reason why we build so much vital on the weapon is not necessarily for the proc, but for the contact damage, since we are going to be shooting Orokin, and they nowadays take extra damage from it. As for the Warframe of choice, let's go Revi Boy, and we're gonna go with something like Arcane Avenger. That's why Combat Discipline is here. In case you didn't know, you can proc it like so on Avenger. And Arcane Velocity. Honestly, only Avenger is really relevant because with Avenger and all of the procs we're going to be getting on our targets, we go to Red Crit territory. And I'll just explain why Red Crit now so people don't ask later. 140% from the weapon, 25% for the Puncture procs, and another 45% from Avenger. That's how you get to Red Town, and you'll see Red Town a whole lot more often on the Dex variant than you will on the Prime. The reason we spawn Corrupted Heavy Goons Eximus is because these are tougher and more annoying. If I am to spawn a battle group or something of the sort, even though that would be a bit more realistic, basically it makes weapons seem more powerful than they actually are, and for a realistic taste, we're gonna go to an actual mission right after I show you what the weapon can do. Yes, you are getting one-shots. I mean, at least that. Level 200 one-shots from the brand new Incarnon weapon. The one-shots will happen both on body shot and, as you might expect, on headshot. Is it hard to use the weapon? No. If you ever used a hit scan burst weapon, essentially you just use it normally like so. Now I'll just keep my trigger finger pressed down. Now for the Dex, the exact same build as before, in the exact same conditions, headshots to charge. Basically the exact same performance as before. You can kill targets with body shots, and you can kill targets with headshots if you kill them with body shots. I always prefer the Dex on a personal level, but that's because I am attached on a nostalgic level, simply because way back when I first got Dex weapons in 2018, they were so much more powerful than the garbage I had as a fledgling Tenno. But in any case, let's do a normal mission, shall we? We're gonna go fight ourselves some... What's the latest thing? Murmur, that's it. This is a survival against base level Steel Path, and the reason why I chose survival is because you got a good density on this one. If I don't show it in survival, you know, it's a single target weapon at the end of the day. Yes, it can kill enemies in normal mode as well, but you really gotta go Incarnon to get the full power of the weapon. Because, you know, Incarnon weapon. What can I tell you? Playing a mission like this with a whole lot of enemies with a single target weapon, it's not exactly something I would call fun, and I'll tell you why not, because you have better options in this area of effect weapons. Is this the fault of the Incarnon Sybaris or the Sybaris Prime in general? No! The Sybaris is not to blame that the meta favors what it does. You can't exactly blame the weapon that the design of Warframe simply went in that direction. But it's still a single target weapon in an area of effect meta. And I can keep killing trash all day, but as I always say, it doesn't really prove much of anything. Let's find an acolyte and shoot it. Misery wants to visit us. Alright, Misery, where you at? He's down there. Oh, perfect. Would you mind sitting still so I may shoot you for my viewers? There you go. That's it. Only a couple of blasts out of the weapon, so it can kill acolytes. Is it one of the best at it? Obviously not. I use the Dex in this example, but the performance difference between Prime and Dex Incarnon weapons are essentially negligible in the case of the Sybaris, so you can take this gameplay example as applying to both. Now, about those conclusions. First of all, I don't feel like the developer put in a whole lot of time and effort into thinking about the Incarnon firing mode of this weapon, as is evident from some of the incarnations or talents. Second of all, in terms of power, the weapon simply doesn't have it. It's an okay single target weapon. Is it one of the best single target weapons? Absolutely not. The Dex or the Prime, it doesn't really matter. It's just... do I even say it? Incarnon mastery fodder. Incarnon weapons, last time I checked, were supposed to be the ultimate weapons of the game. Perhaps the developer changed their mind. Perhaps we are meant to have these mech weapons. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a horrible weapon, it's not a terrible weapon by any stretch of the imagination. I just like double volleyed or triple volleyed, what was that? I don't know, an acolyte. I forgot its, I didn't see its name. So it's not bad. If I was to compare this to regular weapons, it would be good. But still, I would prefer a Plasma or a Wraith or something a bit more automatic than this that can put in more bullets into your target faster. It's not a bad weapon by any stretch of the imagination. However, this entire rotation to me was mostly disappointing. And if you're wondering, hey man, which are the best from these rotations, then I would go first of all for a ranged weapon, you go for the Incarnon Sybaris. Link in the cards right now if you want to see a full and detailed build guide on that one. If you are more of a melee guy, believe it or not, the Okina was kind of cool because it makes these spectral daggers of sort, and that is nice and fun. Why can't we have that for ranged weapons? Why did you do the exact same fire mode, only with guaranteed blast procs? Did I mention that? It has guaranteed blast proc? I think I did. Yeah, freaking who? And that's kind of it. Again, I'm not calling it shit, but by Incarnon standards, it's pretty weak. As always, my name has been Leyzar. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe only if you enjoy the content. If you got any feedback for me, let me know in the comment section down below. Also in the comment section down below if you want to suggest any particular type of content. You can also catch me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places, testing this stuff live. I'll catch you guys in the next one.